Now, let's talk about the Federal Reserve and the IRS, which are two huge things that Ron Paul is highly against. And let me give you guys some background on this. I'm actually going to include a link at the bottom of this video, which will lead you to the knowledge that the United States of America has been bankrupt since 1913. It's actually recorded in the Congressional Library. Just like it happened right now with the bailout of banks, the same thing happened in 1913 with the U.S. government. The thing is that the institutions that actually bailed out the U.S. government were private bankers. Families like the Rockefellers, the J.P. Morgans, the Mellons, the Carnegies, etc. So when they make a big loan to a country, they obviously have to collect on that loan. Therefore, the Federal Reserve was established as an institution that lent the U.S. government the money, and the IRS was established as the collection agency for that money lent to the U.S. government. Also, Congress, most of you probably don't know this, but Congress has the ability to print money interest-free. That means that the Federal Reserve right now has the ability to print money and literally loan it to the U.S. government. So if they print the dollar, they say, okay, I'm going to loan you $1, U.S. government, and I'm going to charge you 5% on that. The question is, where does that nickel come from if the sole producer and printer of money is the Federal Reserve? The answer is that 5 cents doesn't come from anywhere. That is always going to be a deficit. That's why the monetary system, not only in the U.S., but in any country that uses currency, is always going to be in inflation. The thing is that they show it to you in a different light by comparing currencies versus currency. The US dollar is up versus the yen, it's down versus the euro, etc. But if you compare the dollar year over year, it has always decreased. We have always had inflation. It's never going to go away because that system is in place. Now, Congress does have the ability to print this money, this currency, and not charge us as the taxpayers any money. It's just money that is basically given to the government at net value. But that's not there because the because the Federal Reserve is there, and so is the IRS. Now, going to the topic of money a little bit here. Even though slavery was done away with the 13th Amendment, I think was back in either 1863 or 1865, slavery is alive and well nowadays. It just has a different name. It's called debt. So long as you have debt, guess what? You're enslaved. And in the US, you technically will never own your home. For example, in the US, if you own a home but you don't pay your real estate taxes, you can actually lose your home even though your debt is completely paid off. Same thing happens if you have any debt. If you have debt, what happens is this. Let's say you have an a-hole boss and he is just writing you left and right. Let's say you have a mortgage, you have loans outstanding, you have a family to support, etc. If your boss is an a-hole, you're going to be putting up with it because you know that if you don't, you're going to get fired, a check won't be coming in, you won't be able to pay your mortgage, you won't be able to pay your personal debt, you won't be able to support your family. So because of those things and the consequence that would happen for you to not put up with your boss, you're going to put up with it. So you're basically being trained to a certain degree to put up with these things and these pressure. The thing is that the pressure has been so great nowadays that people are getting fed up with it. That's why you have the uprisings in Egypt. You have the revolutions that are going on. For example, the Occupy Wall Street. You have the anonymous group that's out there that's hacking into everything they can get their hands on. So all these things are just kind of going on in the world because people are really getting fed up with it. Another thing I want to point out to you guys is that the Federal Reserve and the IRS are not government agencies or entities for that matter. They're actually privately owned. And in that link that I'm going to provide to you at the bottom of this video, you actually see who the owners of the Federal Reserve are, which are Rockefellers. J.P. Morgan is another one of the families that own it, or J.P. Morgan Chase as a company. You also have Goldman Sachs, amongst a myriad of other different companies that own it. Now, if you go even a little bit higher than the Federal Reserve, you'll find you run something called the Bank of International Settlements, the BIS. The BIS actually owns every single central bank in the world. And they're also tied to the IMF, which is the International Monetary Fund, and also the World Bank. So they basically, this is where the whole thing of the one world currency, one world government does come into play, and that's a very huge piece of it. Now, let's talk about the war, because the war also does have a part in this. As you guys know, in Islamic religion, you may or may not know, but Islamic religion, they do not believe in debt. They actually have, I would like to call it like a fund, I can't think of the name right now, but it's basically like a fund that they have, that money goes into it. If I'm a Muslim, and I need money, I just pull money from this fund and I pay it back interest-free. I just pay back the money that I paid. So they don't believe in debt. Now, why is the US in Iraq, for example? Well, they have an amazing natural resource, oil, something called sweet crude. Now, the difference between the crude that's here in the US and the crude that's over there in the Middle East is how much it takes to process, or as far as money is concerned. Here, to process a barrel, let's say it takes $1 to process. The oil that comes from the Middle East takes $0.25. So you're actually cutting down your cost by 75%, which obviously increases your profit margin if you sell that processed good as gasoline is concerned. So why would we go over there? Well, a couple things. They don't accept debt, so there's a way for you to create debt in a country. You destroy it and then you rebuild it. And if they can't pay it, it's okay, you have a natural resource. So I'll take your oil in exchange for compensation for the debt that you incurred because we destroyed your entire country and we're rebuilding it now. And by the way, that's a loan that we're creating. It's a phenomenal way of doing things. But it's the way that the world's run through. It's in a very sneaky way, and if your eyes aren't wide open, you're just going to miss on all these kind of things. I want to leave you with just two more things. And keep this in mind because it's also an analogy. There are many ways for people to get you to do something, and I'm going to give you guys a perfect example. If I want all of you to drink water, I can do it three ways. I can ask you, hey, do you want a glass of water? And you'll probably deny it. I can do a second one. I can force you to drink it. Put a gun to your head until you drink the water. And you might drink it because you fear for your life. Now, there's a more sneaky way of doing it, which would be that, okay, you don't want to drink water, I'll just feed you salty potato chips, or I'll feed you food, or I'll feed you popcorn, because I know that at the end of the day, you're going to drink water to wash it down because the saltiness of the food is affecting you. If you can just keep that in mind, and apply it to some of the things of why you're doing some of the things that you're doing as a human being, you realize that you guys are just sheep. And that's where the whole thing of the Matrix comes into play. I also want you guys to think about divide and conquer. Divide and conquer is something that we've heard in games and everything else. And I want you to think about this. In the world, we're all the human race. Now, they have made separations and segregations for us to be fighting against each other so we can basically not pay attention to the people at the very top. You know how magic, pay attention to the right hand so you don't know what the left hand's doing. They kind of trick you, they kind of do something really fast and you forgo what this one's doing because this one keeps you busy and paying attention to it. We have that very much alive and well today, and I'm going to give you a couple of examples. You have it from whether you're black, white, Asian, so now they have racial discrimination or racial segregation. Political views, Democrat, Republican, Independent. Let's go something even more personal. Let's say that all of you guys in there and I are best friends and we're huge sports fans. We've known each other since we were born. We would do anything for each other, but there's one small difference. And I'm going to use Florida because that's where I'm from. Let's say that all of you are Seminoles fans and I'm a Gators fan. We're best buds throughout the whole year, but come the game between the Seminoles and the Gators, we are like mortal rivals. We just hate each other, at least for that game. Now, if you look how the world is divided, how everything is segregated, you'll realize that they do divide and conquer very well with us, whether it's through religion, whether you're tall, you're skinny, you're pretty, you're ugly, you wear glasses, you don't wear glasses, you're Hispanic, you're African American, you're Chinese, you're whatever. There are so many ways to segregate and segment and have people at odds with each other, even in political views, pro-abortion, against abortion, pro-heterosexuality, pro-gay marriage, against that stuff. Everything is a pro and a con. Everything is a pro and a con because what that does is it puts people on sides. And so long as everybody's on opposing sides, they're going at each other. And they can obviously forego looking at what the people at the top are doing. So go question things. Go research them. Think for yourself. Stop taking what they tell you at face value, and you're going to learn so much more and be so much more educated, and you'll actually be able to make smart decisions. Now, the last thing I want to leave you guys with is this. Once you go and if you choose to go into this research mode and learn as much as you can, one thing's going to happen, which happened to me. The red pill effect is going to happen, where you actually see the world for what it is, and you're going to become depressed, and chances are that you may even want to say, okay, how do I change it? And the answer is that you can't. As an individual, you can't. The only way that you can change the world, once you figure out how crappy it is and how manipulated it is and how just screwed up it is, the only way that you can do it is if humanity as a whole comes together for a single purpose, moves towards it, and changes things. Until that happens, so long as this bickering is going on, nothing's going to change. I will be putting more series of these out because there's a lot of topics we have to cover, but I wanted to give you guys a general understanding of where I started in my research. So with that being said, hope you guys enjoyed it. Have a great day, and I'll see you guys next video.